Alright, here we are again talking about the XV01 chassis from Tamiya. I wanted to do this one as a special A-side to the main build. I'm not ready to do this particular function yet, but I figured out that these gears have the same pitch and size as an Axial AX10 transmission, which is kind of cool because the Axial AX10 you can buy steel gears for it, and these being plastic, I've had some pretty severe issues, as you can see, with stripping the gears off. Now I believe for the spur gear and the pinion you can find steel. You can get hardened drive shafts, and then you would only have a weakness in the belt or the tires slipping. But with this, the gears really get unfriendly, and inside there is kind of a hex drive, and that will strip out as well. This is the only gear I haven't figured out what to do with, because they don't make this one exactly with a hex drive. It's a cross pin drive, kind of like what goes in here. So ultimately, I've been talking to a machine shop to try and figure out how I can get, and it's going to be pretty darn expensive. I'm looking at probably another $1,000 or more to get this. But if anybody else has got a faster way, I can tell you that I think the best chance is to create one from like a hot racing AX10 gear, because they got the same holes, kinda. And roughly, I believe, the same diameter there. Robinson Racing also has another one. And then this idler and these other ones actually need to be machined, I believe, from the way that you get them. But I'm not quite sure yet, and I haven't had the money rounded up yet to get them taken over there to have my machinist do some magic work to it. But unfortunately, as you can see, I mean, this is generally pretty lunchboxed right there. Obviously that little one is just torn to shreds. Everything else kind of holds up pretty good, but when you put a serious amount of weight and pressure and speed to this car, this becomes a real problem. So if anybody's got any other ideas or fixes for it, or knows of any other parts, that's about the only answer I've got. I noticed that you could get this same size of gearing from Robinson Racing and Hot Racing, some other ones, for an Axial AX10. So it'll probably be next year sometime, but I'm going to give it a shot and see if I can't have these machined, get a steel drive. I know that Kyosho used to use a sprocket and chain drive on some of their buggies, and so I was looking into potentially converting this over to a chain drive. I think it's a 0.15 chain. I only look around on eBay for this stuff when I'm just trying to think it up, but I think that might be a solution. Maybe add another roller, convert the chassis over to carbon fiber so it's a little stiffer and able to handle some of the mods and some of the spacing. I know some people have a little bit of an issue fitting their electronics. I've had electronics in here that didn't fit. So as you can see, I cut that mud guard, which is usually, this is a covered up container for this. In reality, when you set this thing up stock, most of the guards and covers don't actually seal up that well from the dirt, especially not your spur gear cover. If you notice, there's the remains of silicone in there. So I take automotive grade silicone, just some black stuff, and put a little bead in there when I'm putting this on, so it glues this shut. A lot of times I'll try and glue this shut, but it's never really worked. This is the long guard here, just to keep stuff out. It's never worked because this ends up being open down here just enough. You can see the gap in there. So I'm going to try and figure out a way to get a different kind of cover, because that will get a rock in there and pitch the belt off, and you'll notice all of a sudden you'll go from 4 to 2-wheel drive, and it'll just be front drive only because it'll flip the belt upside down. There are some issues. This thing picks up sand like any other Tamiya and just holds on to it. Little tub down in there. A full-size servo doesn't necessarily want to work as well as you would think it would. As you can see right there, there's just literally no clearance. Of course, I've got it spaced off with a Heim joint, so I'm just going to have to reduce the forward throw. I believe that a low-profile servo can give me a little bit better clearance, and maybe a different servo saver puts it back a little farther. So I've got a lot of stuff to do on this one. When it's running, this is probably one of the most radical cars that I've got. So there you go. Hopefully you'll be able to find something to do with those gears. If I ever come up with the way to make them, I'll provide you with some details about how to get it done and some of the measurements and stuff.